Nike here. As I discussed in my last video, I am not going to do a new warrior guide until after the next balance patch. But I do still get asked all the time what specific min-max in terms of gear, food, and infusions I use on my warrior for both power and condi. So I thought it would be useful to do a abbreviated guide where I show you exactly how I have my build set up and why. Alright, for Condi Warrior, either Condi PS or Condi DPS, the setup is the same. The only thing that's going to change are runes and sigils. You're going to want mostly Viper stats, but two particular pieces of Sinister gear. Why do we need two particular pieces of Sinister gear? Because with full Vipers, we go over the 37.00 condition duration that we want to get in the build to hit exactly 100% of bleeds and burns. So therefore, we can swap those two pieces to Sinister and still get 100% and squeeze out just a little bit more condition damage and power and precision out of what we're doing. So which two pieces? Your shoulder piece should be Sinister, and one of your rings should be Sinister. So those two things, if you change them out, you'll get the 555 expertise breakpoint without going a single point over and have perfect stats. Infusions couldn't be easier. You want +5 Condi damage infusions in every slot. Condi Warrior is a breeze, and there's really no controversy there. Stay tuned though, Power Warrior gets slightly more complicated. Power Warrior is a bit more complicated. Since we can split the banners and raids, we get to bring 2 signets for DPS, which means that we don't need Sigil of Accuracy anymore on our weapons because we'll always have Signet of Fury on our bar. As a result, we need to hit the breakpoint of 2255 precision, which will allow us to arrive at exactly 63.76 critical chance in our hero panel. When fully buffed, this will get us to 99.00% crit chance in the hero panel, which works out to be exactly 100% crit chance in-game. Well, there are multiple ways to get to the 2255 breakpoint using different combinations of gear and infusions, so if you get there another way, that is absolutely fine. I'm just going to show you the way I use. Before I do that, I want to say that a lot of people recommend truffle steaks as the food of choice in their Power PS Warrior, and they base their min-max around the 70 precision that you get from truffle steaks. Personally, I do not recommend this because what happens is there are times where you want to use golden fried dumplings as your food, and if you do, you will now be 70 precision short of 100% critical chance, which works out to be a loss of about 3.33%. My advice is to make up the extra 70 precision from your gear. That way, if you do use dumplings, you will still hit 100% critical chance. The drawback to this is that means when you do use DPS food, you cannot use truffle steaks, or else you'll be wasting stats. With that said, the best foods for this setup is sweet and spicy butternut squash soup, or dragon's breath buns in encounters where there's a lot of ads to trigger the bonus 200 power. Yes, sweet and spicy truffle steaks are a bit expensive, but it does last twice as long. And when you factor that in, it isn't really so much more expensive than truffle steaks on an hourly basis. Another lucky factor is that Dragon's Breath buns are much cheaper, and there are many fights where you can keep up the bonus damage 100% of the time. So, what is the trade-off? Since I'm coming in at 70 less power than I would be doing it the truffle steak way, I make up for that by having about 80 more ferocity. My crits will hit slightly harder than the truffle steak build. However, that is in part canceled out by the fact that my air sigil procs will have 70 less power factored into them. Now, that's kind of a mouthful and a lot to juggle in your head, but it works out to be overall a very tiny little DPS increase for the build I'm talking about. It works out to be like 0.01% better, which will never show up on a DPS meter, will never show up on a boss kill timer, and is nothing that you ever have to worry about. The DPS difference is so minimal that your ping that day is a bigger difference. It's so minimal that whether or not you had caffeine throughout the day will be a bigger performance boost than your build. The only factor you want to keep track of, you want to worry about, is the food and what food you're using. If you know for a fact that a significant percentage of the time you use golden fried dumplings with your power PS build, you should almost certainly go with my setup, especially if you don't really care about the cost of the sweet and spicy butternut squash soup for the times that you don't use dumplings. So with that said, it's really up to you, but I strongly advocate my way because I think there will always be times, at one time or another, where you're going to want golden fried dumplings. Well, with all of that introduction out of the way, what we need to do from our gear is, let's assume we started from the basis of everything full Berserker. We need an additional 155 precision more than we get from full Berserker in order to reach that 2255 breakpoint. Therefore, I use the following pieces of gear. My chest is Assassins, my gloves are Assassins, and my legs are Assassins. So those 3 Assassins pieces, plus 7 Precise Infusions. I put a Precise Infusion in my headpiece, and my shoulder piece, 2 in my weapons, and then I have 1 ring that has 3. So in total of 7. So between those 3 armor pieces and the 7 Precise Infusions, I get exactly where I need to be with the 2255 precision, and all the rest of my infusion slots are made up with Mighty plus 9 power, or plus 5 plus 9 power. And as described, this level of min-max will give you the most stats because you will have an additional 9 ferocity, a whole whopping 9 ferocity more than another build, which works out to be less than 1% critical damage, which works out to be way less than 1% DPS. But if you want the most numbers possible, that's the way to go. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful to some of you out there. If you have any thoughts or comments or whatever, leave them below. Maybe I'll read them, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll reply, maybe I won't. But I'd appreciate it if you took the time to do it. Thanks guys, see you next time.